This is Past the Rock.
Help me now! I'm being bombarded! Sonic vibrations, swirling conspiracy theories, flesh-eating low-end, mindless, nonsensical cliches with aspirations to mediocrity.
Oh, R.I.P. to the legend. Yeah,
Oh,
Bill Walton has passed on. Fairly surprising news to come out of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So he did Are we calling this a Chadwick now? Is that what we?
Or a Norm?
Norm did it too. Norm did it before Chadwick, didn't he?
Probably.
Somewhere. It was around the same time. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, to be fair, if I was a celebrity, I would probably also be interested in a similar way of handling something as severe as cancer. I don't know that I've seen how long he had it. He had been sort of working through it, I guess, for a bit now. He actually finished doing the Pac-12 season. And then, funny enough, ironically enough, died a day after the Pac-12 officially ended.
Right.
Which is, we're talking about a UCLA legend. We're talking about a kid born and raised along the Pacific Northwest throughout all of his life, really. From college, I think he's born and raised South California. I think he's San Diego boy. And
Looks
then
and sounds like it.
San Diego boy, then goes to LA for college.
Mesa.
La Mesa. I think La Mesa's south.
Sounds like it would be.
Yeah, it definitely looks
If I
like
had
it
to
is.
guess.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Yeah, it's about it's the southernmost county.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right outside of San Diego, so you're on the money with that.
Right, because that's how they got him over to the Clippers, and then the Clippers thing kind of went really badly, and that's a whole historical story. Let's see if this is where I know most of my information. The Bill Walton Back from the Dead book, fantastic book. Some of the interesting things I think about this guy. Huge stuttering problem when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Learned how to talk because of like Chick Hearn and Vin Scully and people like that, because obviously he would have been listening to Laker and Dodger broadcasts back in the day. That's why he actually always has sounded like an announcer and sort of perfectly was melded into the announcer's world. But I think that's where you'll get a little bit of difference of opinion on how great Bill Walton was as far as the announcer goes. I think that he was a bigger deal early on. I watched him a little bit as a child, but by the time I was watching basketball, they had already kind of pushed him back into the college basketball world because his antics was a little too much for the regular big broadcast. He also had a famous moment where he basically called a guy shitty, where the guy could hear him as the guy was checking into a crucial game. There was just a lot of moments for Bill Walton there, but cherished Bill Russell. Most of this book is dedicated to Bill Russell as much as anything. As much as he talks about the Grateful Dead, and every single chapter is a Grateful Dead lyric, starts with it. So he's truly the greatest Deadhead of all time. He talks about Bill Russell almost as much as the Grateful Dead in here. So very interesting guy. His career, probably one of the biggest peaks of all time. It's fun that this happens, right after Nikola Jokic has ascended to where he's at, because that's probably the closest historical comparison. But Bill Walton was much more of a defensive monster because he was just a big, long, strong son of a bitch. But Bill Walton essentially, like Tim Duncan did for so long, that was essentially the model. Was Bill Walton was standing up near the free throw line and commanding all these players to motion around you, knowing that you can always make the offensive play if you need to, but that you are setting the table for others essentially now as the de facto point guard. So that is probably the biggest contribution to basketball for Bill Walton. But interesting dude. Like I said, John Wooden, his relationship with John Wooden, because John Wooden's a stubborn, conservative old Christian man, or was. And Bill Walton was as radical of a liberal as you could possibly be. And they clashed in a very beautiful way that I think, especially nowadays, is very, very relevant to a political climate of America. So definitely some interesting stuff. I recommend Back from the Dead if anybody wants to learn more about Bill Walton. I think for autobiographies, he's one of the few guys where I think you can actually trust his word because I think he actually had Tourette's. I don't think he could actually tell a lie. I think everything he thought just came out.
Yeah, every interview I've seen or heard of him where he's not on like an actual broadcast is just either an introduction and you might get a question in, or he's just going to go for 5, 10, 15 minutes for a bit. You're just going to let him.
It was to the point where most people knew that they would like, I forget who would do it, but someone would call him.
I know Levitt's Hard show. They would like, I don't know if they were betting or if they were always keeping track. I remember a specific one where they're all like cheering after he hits a certain amount of minutes.
Yes, it was Levitt's Hard thing. Yeah, they called him intentionally knowing that they weren't going to ask him any questions, that they just like basically introduced the conversation. In fact, I think they had a starter question and they never got to it. That's how impressive he was.
And he would just run with it. Just crazy, yeah. But obviously, he brought Portland their only championship. That's worth noting.
1977.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the MVP that year?
Oh, yeah. He would have been back-to-back MVPs that year.
He was not
right?
MVP that year. He won Finals MVP that year and then won MVP the next season.
Oh, you're looking at the reference?
I'm on there. Well, I'm looking at a reference.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he's injured for a good chunk of this season, I believe.
But I would be interested to know if there's any other player that's won MVP and Sixth Man of the Year, because that's pretty damn impressive.
In fact, I think really the Sixth Man of the Year is also a part of his legacy because I don't think we really cared that much. Historically, I don't think people were going to care that much. And then you get this reclamation story. By this point, to summarize history, Walton has already basically destroyed his entire lower legs. Both of them.
Yeah, he had his ankles fused.
Feet are completely destroyed. I mean, and this is a historical thing for this guy. Not only did Portland absolutely botch and fuck up his career, which they completely deserve blame for, he was born with many, many of issues that were only exacerbated by the poor quality of medical care that 1970s basketball teams provided. And the mentality of just grind, right? Those people didn't think about players, longevity. They just thought about winning every game, right? So ultimately, that was probably one of the other things. So he ends up getting a free agency deal, but I think it's being sort of a trade to the Clippers. But then at this point, the Clippers are in the midst of selling their team to the dumbass that we would go on to know as Donald Sterling. Sterling ends up playing there for a little bit, but then I think they ended up blowing the team up so badly because the league ends up forcing the Clippers to trade basically their entire roster for Bill Walton because Portland bitches about the decision for Bill Walton to leave. But this is a year and a half after he's played with them, I believe. He's literally blaming them for his career being derailed completely. Like we're talking about LeBron and the Cavs fractured relationship. This might have been the most fractured relationship of all time. So it's pretty amazing that eventually that would get fixed too. Of course, 40, 50 years passed before that really was a thing. But anyway, San Diego Clippers get him. He tries his damnedest to make the Clippers work. Doesn't really work. His body starts to fail him again. And then I think he has to come back and either play for the Lakers or for the Celtics. He chooses the Celtics.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you're saying he had a choice.
I think he had a choice between the Lakers and Celtics too, if I remember correctly. But then yes, he does play for the Celtics barely. Plays just long enough to win that great '86 title, and then it's pretty much over after that.
6 Man of the Year.
Yep, 6 Man of the Year title. That's one of the most dominant teams of all time as well. His '77 team was considered like the best starting five of all time because of how well they meshed. But then the '86 Celtics are often brought up as
I got a team for you.
What?
14 Spurs? Come on.
I mean, this 14 Spurs have an interesting conversation. I just think it deflates a little bit because they were too motivated. Like, it's hard to – like, if you were to redo this thing in a hypothetical where you got all the past champions, how do we talk about motivation? Because 14 Spurs is like uber motive. Like I don't think there's a more motivated group in the history of basketball. And they get the revenge match. They got everything they wanted, and they fucking poured it on everybody that year. So that's an interesting one. And it's like, do they still have that vigor and that fire without?
That's fair.
So I've always thought that's a tough one with those hypotheticals.
Another fun note about Bill Walton: his brother Bruce played for the Dallas Cowboys and lost Super Bowl 10 against the Steelers.
That's true. I forgot about his dad. His brother was
the only brothers to ever play in the Super Bowl and the NBA Finals.
Still
didn't know that.
Oh.
That makes sense. Yeah, but yes, and actually that would have been in the book too. But that I did forget all about that because he had a weird relationship with his family.
And there's so much with Bill Walton. There's just so much to know and to take in. There's so much content. He was out there a lot. There's a lot.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I can guarantee you that the road tripping podcast that he just made dedicated to him, that's Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson's podcast, I would definitely recommend that because Richard Jefferson is best friends with Luke Walton.
Okay.
And so basically Richard grew up in Bill's house as a, kind of a part of that, as a side part of that family. And so he knows Mr. Walton very well too. So I have to imagine there's some hilarious fucking stories that are probably going to be spit out in that podcast.
G, whatever. G, yeah.
I don't remember where I got that from. I'm pretty sure that happened during the pandemic. But I just knew the instant I saw it, it had to be mine forever. And now I have it forever. And thank you, Patrick, for uploading it here so I didn't have to.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that one needed subtitles.
No, but and props on the subtitles for the first one because I've watched it enough to where I have it basically memorized.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's a lot of words that make sense in a linear fashion.
No. But yeah. Now current today basketball, there's a lot.
Now, all right,
update
awkward shift
time.
to the Celtics.
Oh, yeah, nice. I like that.
Because he won.
That was his last team. Yeah.
So,
I guess so. Yeah, we can go there.
So
start in the Eastern Conference.
It's just easier because we missed 2 weeks. Last time we got
it's over.
That too. Last time we talked, this team hadn't even. No, I think they had just finished off the Cavs. Last time we had talked. And I think the Pacers-Knicks series had maybe just ended. Maybe that was it. Maybe the Pacers-Knicks had just ended. And we had just found out this was going to... Oh, no. I remember. Game 1 of this series would have happened. And then Game 1 of the Mavericks-Wolves would have happened the night we would have recorded. Anyway. Boom. Doesn't matter. Celtics take the Cavs right the fuck out of the equation. Donovan Mitchell essentially more or less steps away from the series. Then they get the Pacers, who have outlasted the New York Knicks. The Knicks played very well, but there's, injuries suck, and they had only so many players. Pacers had so many players. It happens. They end up taking the series in Game 7. Tyrese Halliburton gets to have his big moment, gets to wear the Reggie Miller choke T-shirt, has good fun with the Knicks fans. But that's the highlight of his season because even though he helped make Game 1 and 2, I believe he played Game 2 fairly good.
Oh,
He
not so much Game 2, but yeah.
Yeah, or no, Game 2 was the ass whooping. So Game 1 was Game 1.
It would have to have been Game 3.
They almost won. They almost stole Game 1, and then they really fumbled that one. Fumbled Game 4 as well. Had the lead for most of Game 4, and they lost that without Halliburton. Andrew Nembhard certainly
they didn't score the last 3.5 minutes of the game.
Which is honestly more of a credit to Boston, I would say, than anything.
That just feels like one of those combinations of like as it snowballs, and you're just going to be tighter and tighter, and your season's slipping away and away. It's going to get worse and worse if you're not that team.
And your one tough shot maker isn't on the court, So that's the hard part. So the Celtics are in the NBA Finals, and there's some people considering this as one of the most dominant runs of all time. And there's some people who are saying that this is the easiest path a conference champion has ever had to the finals. Now, I did not do my homework,
but it's definitely not the most difficult.
I didn't do my
Definitely not.
homework. I also agree with that because there's like if you just went through the Eastern Conference history alone, we could probably find some better candidates.
Jordan's Bulls had some easy ones. LeBron had some cakewalks.
That was what I was talking about, especially when the Heat first formed. The East really, like, there was paper tigers. There was the Pacers, there was the Bulls, there were paper tigers.
Hawks.
The Hawks were big time. That was a little bit later, but there was a lot of paper tigerdom going on in the Eastern Conference for a bit there. So I do agree with that being something I would have to research, but fortunate is what I would call it. But you could also say they're unfortunate because now they've gotten through a first round series against, oh shit, do I even remember who they played? They won 4-1, right? They fucking choked the game at home. The Heat, right. So, yeah, the Heat without Butler, they win that one in 5. Then you get the Cavs basically without Donovan Mitchell for the better part of the series. Take that in 5, right? I think that's 5.
Yeah.
And then you take this one as a sweep with Halliburton missing 2.5 games.
2 games.
So they're 12.
Yeah, did he finish
12 and 2?
So, yeah.
Even 2
I think
games.
they just pulled him early because either way, it doesn't matter. Minor points here. So essentially, it's very fortunate. And now they're going to sit there and look at what 9 days before they play again.
June 9th is game 1, right? So today's the 29th.
Even longer.
Yeah, 10.
So, yeah,
11.
You could argue that this is setting them up for success. I think that it's very obvious that they're still the best.
Why are
They're the most talented team in basketball. They are easily the most talented team in basketball when they're healthy. But this does put them in just a very awkward position. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of poetic if they win the championship that they'll go through this. But for them to basically be gifted a finals run and still sort of have the KP injury thing lingering over their head, still have the Jason Tatum hasn't looked as the most dominant, but even though he was fairly dominant during this run, Jaylen Brown kind of steals his thunder in the last game and wins the Eastern Conference Player of the Year award, which is our conference finals player of the series, whatever. I think it's Kobe Bryant award or no.
That would be strange.
No, Kobe's the Western Conference winner.
Is it LeBron?
No, I don't think it's. Is it Bill? It's not Bill Russell though, right?
Would it be Jordan?
It's Michael. It's Michael, right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Probably Michael.
Unless they want to give it to
Or
Robert
looking for that,
Ory.
I did want to
Did you ever
present
do it in the
something
East?
to you, Bethke.
Yes.
Just so we can get some more like advanced metrics in here. Of course, this is more like, you can adjust anything to make any kind of argument. We know that. But there is an injury-adjusted record for average opponents, right? And since 1984, this Celtics team has had the easiest schedule in terms of injury-adjusted. So players,
I see.
Yeah,
so all 3 of the teams they've played have lost their best players, so that's
So
Well, I think
the
he's saying
second
even with those guys not being out, right?
no. This is with
that's
accounting.
injury replacement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
It's
Sorry.
basically accounting for.
I thought
the
he was
injuries.
saying it would still be the easiest even if those guys were in.
No.
That would be funny though. That's a different argument.
Yeah, but their average opponent wins with their significant stars being missed would come out to about 37.3 wins. So that is not good, obviously. Now the next group of teams, just to present to you guys, the 85 Lakers, the 2007 Cavaliers, the 87 Lakers,
The 07 Cavaliers
the
could be
84
the worst
Lakers.
finals team of all time.
Damn. So the 80s Western Conference is actually, now that I think about it, the 80s Western Conference is an interesting one to look at. Yeah.
So just to keep that in mind, I guess, whenever we present the full picture of how this Celtics run.
Yeah, 07 Cavs sticks out a lot, but that's an interesting one too because they have to beat the basically the 2-time or the 3 or 4 2-time Eastern Conference champions. But then they had been the Pistons. The
Heat won in 06. So
the Heat won in 06, but they still beat the Pistons to get there. So the Pistons had been in the conference finals every year for like 6 years, I think, up to that point. and then that was the last year before that whole group dismantled. Yeah, so damn. Okay, there you go. That
Tough
makes
run.
sense, though. Yeah, and the 80s Western Conference makes a lot of sense, too, because I think they got hit harder with the initial expansion saturation. In the Eastern Conference, you have a whole lot of – there's like Bucks teams that probably win a championship if the Celtics and Lakers don't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You have
I
the
mean,
Sixers kind of
It's a
battling through.
still a heavy money-driven league, right? I don't know when the cap gets implemented, but
Yeah, Pacers were still Pacers had there was a lot of different groups there that probably had an interesting 80s that were minimalized by the Celtics and Lakers.
our whole life it's pretty much just been the West dominates, and then either Jordan, LeBron, or the Magic Celtics.
Jimmy for a few years here.
The Magic Celtics team that won one title, and that one Pistons team that snuck through as well.
Yeah. So there, and then the Pistons have happened twice. If you think about that longevity, right? Because then there was the Isaiah Pistons, and then there was the Chauncey Billups once. So yeah,
and I'm gonna send a link to that so you can see who had the easiest path to the finals with before adjusted injuries, just before adjusted 2 injuries, and then after. So you're gonna see the Lakers pop up a lot on both sides because of that expansion.
Yeah. No, that's fair because I think, I'm pretty sure Western Conference got hit harder there.
And last year's Nuggets also pretty high on this list. So
yeah, but that's before you account for injury.
Yeah. I was about to say I don't think they had injuries. I think the Wolves were just too young. Lakers were just not built really that well.
Worth noting when we have conversations about at least next season.
Yeah. That is interesting because I don't even remember who. Oh, their second round opponent was the Suns, who ended up being the most competent, but then that group didn't even want to play with each other, apparently. So either way.
Fun. Thanks, I like that.
Yes, that was great. Great data. So the question then becomes, if the Celtics were to advance and play the team who's currently leading the Western Conference, before we get into that, and beat them, does this narrative change? Or are we talking about them the easiest champion of the championship of all time?
Most of the online people say it's just Luka, Kyrie, and a bunch of nobodies if the Mavs lose.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course.
Which is disrespecting my boy PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. But I get it.
I think Lively might actually be the key to
the third best player on the team. Honestly,
all right, now you guys are jumping in. Now you guys have stepped on it, but that's fair. So the answer is if the situation the hypothetical I just laid out came about, you guys would not be on the Celtics won the easiest title of all time train.
No, I would. I would say they had the easiest path to get there. Right? Like I would say, listen, it's one thing to separate winning the championship from actually your path getting to said championship. To me, they can be connected, but they're not exactly the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because you look at what the West is hell this playoffs. All right, it has been an actual struggle.
Very difficult.
It's been very difficult. And then if you look just based on the records of the teams in the West, if you were just to have forget conference, right? Forget conference. The majority of the teams in the playoffs would all come from the West if you were just to eliminate conferences and just go with the best 8 teams, right? Or the best 16 teams. You would have majority West and a few East. So for me, I'm just like, listen, the Celtics would still have the easiest path. And if they win, well, guess what? They're not as expended as their counterparts who have been through hell of a series. I mean, yeah, you look at the Mavs, they're up 3-1. All those games have been close for the exception of like the Mavericks pulling away in game 3. But they have gone to war with the Clippers, with OKC, and then of course we saw what the Timberwolves had to do against Denver, right? Like that was no walk in the park for them either. So you're getting battle tested on one side, and the other side it just doesn't feel like they are, and they should have been, especially in that Pacers series to me, because I'm like, come on, you've led, you could have at least won 1 or 2 of those games, in my opinion. But I don't know. I'm still going to slander the Celtics regardless if they win or lose.
As is anyone. They're one of it's funny because I think that people get really jealous and pissy about the Lakers and the LeBron attention, but I still feel like more people root against the Celtics when it comes down to it. And it's kind of impressive that that's just the way that sport.
Because Boston sports fans suck, man.
Breaking what?
not actually breaking, really. I just went and did the math. It'd honestly be a pretty even split between East and West if each went off the end of the year records. I think you get one more West team than you do East, but it's not actually that different.
Yeah, this year was competent. I mean, you had 2 under 500 teams
But
on the
problem
other side.
the problem with discussing it that way is if the West teams are mostly playing the West teams and these teams are mostly playing the East teams, and you don't really, Anyways.
No, fair. And then so Caesar basically summarized where we're at with the Western Conference. Of course, the Wolves did take down the defending champions, so we don't want to jump over that too much.
They're just gonna have to break history.
They're gonna have to break some more history. You mean more history? Because they are the first. They led the biggest comeback ever in a Game 7 to win their series against the Nuggets. So boom, they've already done. Look, there you go. There's already a little history in the making.
A little different.
It's a little different. Mavs, of course, went on to control a Thunder team that just basically can't rebound, and that was pretty noticeable over the pace of that series. It was almost damning. They played a really good series. They shot really well. They showed the promise of why they could be a potential dynasty moving forward. But ultimately, again, rebounding, very important part of playing the game of basketball. So Caesar talked about a little bit. Mavs up 3-1. Mavs took a toss-up game 1 that I think the Wolves probably blew more than the Mavs won. Just a little bit. Luka steals game 2 from literally the throat of Rudy Gobert.
That's been the biggest storyline of this whole. And it's going to be the biggest storyline is Luka versus Gobert, and then all the offshoots of that.
The slander of Gobert continues, and I'm here for it.
Rudy Gobert just getting torn apart, despite the fact that he's playing pretty well and the team's playing pretty well.
He just won his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award.
Should have been Wemby.
It is tough, and it's funny because obviously Draymond Green's going viral almost every night reacting to this, which is amazing because
not a side everyone else wants to be on, but they're begrudgingly.
Well, let's be honest. If there's one thing about Draymond Green's career and his boastfulness and his comments and the things that most people probably don't like about him, even if you do, most people you can agree most don't like what Draymond does. However, I think one of the things that history will be pretty unanimous about was that his number of defensive MVPs versus Rudy Gobert's number of defensive MVPs is skewed in a direction that makes the math nerds look stupid and the ball watchers look great. Unfortunately, we want to have a happy world where we're learning good things. So all we're doing is reinforcing the ball don't lie kind of guys, and then just making the people who I don't have a problem with it.
It's just a funny phrase.
Well, no, not that one. There's a guy who's actually, or no, it's ball don't stop.
Oh,
where he's like he does it. He breaks down basketball, but he doesn't like numbers. He only talks about vibes and skills and stuff.
So you're gonna
he
talk disrespect on ball don't lie. We're gonna have some problems.
No, he is the ultimate. Only watches film hoops fan. And he's actually been pretty successful at like interacting and working his way up the chain because the hoopers of the NBA love it. It's a pretty funny thing, but it's in a different side. The Wolves kind of blew game 3 as well. I know that game ended up being more decisive at that. Felt like that was a game that they had within their grasp as well. But then guess what? Karl-Anthony Towns can't hit a fucking thing, right? You're looking at himself
the best big shooting man of all time and just breaks 8 in front of Dirk.
Immediately gets out there and looks absolutely dreadful. I think that they have a voodoo curse put on the Dirk logo because that boy had his whole power stolen from him. He was missing even the bunnies. It was bad. And then last night, the Mavs failed to carpe some diem, as I would put it. Kyrie Irving missed some critical free throws, blew some easy shots at the rim,
could have used some of those free throws.
It was the worst game he's played all. I feel like it's his worst game of the postseason.
It was, and after he started the game by basically looking at a reporter and saying this is their Super Bowl, so the game for us. So it's unfortunate.
I mean, that's true. That is.
It was true.
That is the most. If the Wolves didn't come out as well as they possibly could for that game, then that's a problem.
And it was still just a 5-point victory.
I mean, yeah, this whole series has been
You know?
pretty close.
Yeah.
And it
It was a
allowed
lot
me,
closer than I thought.
and it allowed me to look at the old Andrew Bynum quote about closing out games. And I know Andrew Bynum's a weird
They
bull
say it's the hardest
quote.
one to win.
They do, but he said, "Oh, I think they're actually really easy. You just got to go out there and play with more energy than the other team, and they give up."
Yeah.
And I've always
we saw
enjoyed that
Luka do
theory.
that to the Suns a couple years ago.
Yes, and I do think that there was something to that. I just think that it was fun. I always think it's an oversimplification that's amazingly hilarious.
I mean, that's a lot of times.
But it is
If you are
correct.
the better team talent wise, you really do just need to survive those first couple punches in the mouth, and then you can usually put a team down. Most teams aren't built to be withstood.
In football, we see it a lot in games, right? I remember there was a couple years back, I think 2 years now, there was a Cowboys Washington game where it was kind of like, it wasn't that bad, but then all of a sudden there was some fuck ups, and the Washington players were over there swinging on each other. All of a sudden that game's 50-10 or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit does play into a factor here. And especially at the Wolves, it felt like the Wolves were very cocky, very confident coming out of this series against the Nuggets, and they drastically underestimated the ability of great shot makers to hit shots.
Probably
I'd
not a
And
say
good
they're
idea.
rim
to
runners
call-
and big men.
So
blocking
probably not a
shots.
good idea to call a 22-year-old the next Michael Jordan. Let's just let's cool it. Let him earn his stripes a little bit. He's really good, but come on.
We've been calling him the next Michael Jordan since we found out what his build and frame was. That's just the way that the NBA world kind of does with people. And so unfortunately or fortunately, he's held on to the mantle of next Jordan longer than most prospects. Just like a few guys have come before him, except for he actually is the guard version. We're not talking about like LeBron. We're not talking about
not the
chasing
entity,
goat.
but the player.
We're talking about the player. There have been many of them. Harold Miner is the original Michael Jordan, next Michael Jordan. If y'all
We need to talk about the personality of the next Michael Jordan, because I don't think he has that psychotic personality that MJ had.
Well, that's a good thing, probably. But I mean, we'll see how it develops as he ages.
I feel
Yeah,
like-
he's,
I
also,
feel like-
he's only 22. Well, like, if he
like
loses
Luka's
this year, he
developed
might.
that psychotic
This might be the
personality.
beginning of his villain.
Well, I
arc.
thought they played well. I thought he answered questions really well after the press conference, where he could have been a little more stupid and arrogant about it. I thought that he had more fun with it. He did a good job of kind of playing into it a little bit without going full like
I've enjoyed
bulletin
him and
board
Kat.
material.
Now,
him and Kat's
Now-
post game stuff together.
I want to
Mhm.
I want to get your opinion on this, Bethke, because it feels like we've been a little bit more on the Wolves-centric side. What has Dallas been doing well? Like, I know you've seen the game, so what, for you, have they been doing well to get to this point?
There's a lot of things. I think the biggest thing for me, though, is the amount of quality minutes you get out of the role players. PJ Washington, I don't think has had as great of a shooting series, but they're almost all the timely ones. I mean, it's getting very Robert Horry-esque with him in some of these. And then you have Gafford kind of playing above his playing weight, in my opinion, so far this series. You have obviously Derek Lively, who's made a massive impact and growth over the last couple weeks. Jaden Hardy has replaced Tim Hardaway's minutes. Where the fuck did that come from? But
Ever since
awesome to see.
Ever since Tim Hardaway's dad said that his son was the best shooter on the team, all of a sudden he can't shoot the basketball.
Stunned by it. Derek Jones Jr. just keeping up the pace that he's been at for the most part. I don't know, maybe if his nights have been a little off lately. Josh Green is always out there for positive minutes. It feels like you get Kleba back just in time to get Lively back. Hopefully, of course, the Lively injury we can't step over. He basically got a concussion. They called it a neck sprain, but I think it was probably just a concussion. They set him out for the rest of the game, set him out all of last night.
I don't know if it was a beat writer or someone with a team actually tweeted out that he was in concussion protocol and then deleted it.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of people specifically saying he wasn't, so that's probably why. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they probably were a little nefarious. I don't know that he got hit hard enough to have an actual concussion. It might have just been, close enough to where they were very, very scared and cautious about it.
Yeah.
And then I think they handled it appropriately.
I mean, I wonder what that's like if it's a tie series, if that same decision's made. But
Or
when
if they're
you're up,
down, yeah. yeah,
you're
no,
up 3-0, it's like, go ahead and just.
well, they were up
Yeah.
2-0 at the time, right?
No, that was
Yeah,
after
they were up
yeah.
2-0
At
because
the
this
time-
happened at the end of game 3, or happened
Yeah,
during
it
game
happened.
3.
It happened in the middle of game 3. They hung on.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Obviously,
So
and
you're
they
up
pulled away
3-0 when
too.
you make the decision not to go ahead and play.
Not to play him, yes, the next night.
Yeah, but but you saw how dicey it got the moment.
You also get
that
Kleba back,
Dwight
which
Powell hit
probably
the-
helped.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Now, yeah, thank God, because if we had to sub play him for 10 minutes, I don't think we win game 3, and I definitely don't think we would have won game 4 if Dwight Powell plays double-digit minutes.
Yeah, and so I mean, honestly, if we're talking about the potential of a historical comeback here, that is kind of the one thing that squashes it to me is the fact that now the Mavericks we'll see,
Full
should
strength.
be able to put Lively, Kleba, and Gafford out whenever they so please. Of course, foul trouble, other injuries, who knows what could happen, but ultimately, in theory, they now have that ability. I think that gives them enough to manage to squeeze out one of these wins. But because it's been so close, and because I felt like it's been the clutch moments for the Wolves that they have struggled the most in, even in game 1, when I was kind of reviewing things to just see if there's anything I wanted to add to my notes today, I remembered that there's a Mike Conley pass where he just kind of throws it back into the arms of Gafford, and then I think Luka's next to Gafford. So it's immediately from going from a fast break potential opportunity for the Wolves ends up going into the hands of Luka Doncic to help seal the game. So it's one of those things where,
and not just that, there's also been some really shoddy passes from Anthony Edwards in the first 2 games, especially.
Yeah.
He made some passes that you just scratch your head and you're like, what were you trying to do in this moment?
a little overzealous, I think it has been most of them. It seems like he's had some that are a little too hot, a little too high, all that good stuff. Just the opposite, though. I think while Luka has looked mostly good defensively, I think for the very most part looked good. I think he's excelled at the passing lanes. Like he was doing amazing this year already. I think he got into the top whatever of steals this season. But he was absolutely incredible this series so far at ruining opportunities.
I remember where I heard or read it that someone was theorizing about whether he might struggle on defense because he sees the plays he would make, but that's not the way other people play basketball, you know?
No, he's fucking slow. He'll tell you that.
Watch me.
Yeah, he even said
the,
it
like
so
types
much
of passes he'll make, angles he'll use. Like,
he's big. He's big and he's slow, but it's okay because we can work with that. We just, if he was the point of attack defender that you needed, that was where it was bad. That's why
I will say
guys
this.
were employed.
I will say this though, because I've always just kind of like been like whatever, as long as he's average on the defensive side or just it's a quality help side defender in situations, I'll be happy with that if that's how he peaks on that end. And I think that he's done that in this series where it's like, oh man, he's actually held his weight as much as you could reasonably ask for him to do in these situations. Mm-hmm. I think the best defensive play I've ever seen him make was on that one attempted lob to Rudy Gobert, where he just gets in front of Rudy and meets him at the point, at the highest point of the ball. Yeah, granted, that's more of a bad pass than it is, like an amazing play, but
took a charge
there to make a play. Yeah.
Took a charge,
and he took that charge early. Yeah, he took a charge.
So no, I think Luka's excelled at what he needs to do. I just think overall, when you're looking at it, from what's happening on the court, there's still times where I think they're going to try to attack him. I think it's been really fun for him to take on the challenge of Gobert. I know he kind of had an iffy foul last night that mattered on a defensive play against Gobert towards the end of that game. But ultimately, I think he's done a great job. And really, for me, it's again, the passing lanes. It makes no damn sense for him to be as big and as smart as he is as a passer on the offensive end, but then not be able to produce anything as far as, that's at least some comparative level of using that skill on the defensive end. And he's kind of shut up anybody with that because now it's become such a consistent part of his game. So, yeah, ultimately, I would love to see the Mavericks go into Minnesota and steal it. I think it's going to be very tough. So I do kind of wonder if they're going to have to do it back here in Dallas. I think that the Wolves have all that they need to pull off the historic comeback. They've got role players that can shoot like fucking crazy. They've got all the defense in the world. They match the Mavericks in a lot of the size department.
I mean, yeah,
right?
imagine if Cat actually starts shooting.
But that's the thing is Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards are they both just gonna turn on a consistent nozzle? Because if that happens, sure, I can believe in history. Because the last time I saw something this crazy happen, it took Kyrie Irving and LeBron James averaging 40 points a night, essentially. So, like, it's just one of those things.
My counter is that no team that houses Rudy Gobert is allowed to prosper. The basketball gods wouldn't allow it.
It's offense. It's like he's getting all this shit for the defense, and it's really not even been the issue. It's just the fact that he's so inept offensively.
He's a non-ISO defender that's getting put on the perimeter against one of the best scorers potentially ever. It's a tough.
Yeah,
it's a tough.
Oh, shocker! They fucking hunt matchups in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, and it feels like specifically Luka goes out of his way to find Gobert in any, like in international games and NBA games.
Yeah, and then you have Kyrie on the other end, look specifically hunting down Mike Conley.
Well, he's already
I mean, Mike's been that way.
Whatever Kyrie's doing, he's doing because he already saw it and it worked.
Yeah, he's fucking Doctor Strange.
I need Kyrie to be consistent in this game.
He's looking at the Miffles on the sidelines and he's just like,
I wish
that was last night. As they were losing, he just looked at them and he was like, "This is the way." He's like, "This is the one chance," just like Doctor Strange. But all right, that's pretty much basketball right now. Patrick, you did a good job of glorifying one member of the All NBA teams, but there was many other members of the All NBA teams.
Not even worth mentioning, honestly.
They were kind of weird this year too because the voting thing, but I didn't think there was anything too interesting to talk about. Most of the guys who got it deserved it, so wasn't too much beef there. Any other things to talk about with this series?
I thought one second. I thought this was going to be Jared Sandler.
How do we feel about
Jared Sandler tweeted out this video from that Luka shot, and you can just see there's a guy in Minnesota on the front court who's kind of like pacing back and forth. He's like opposite of where the benches are, and the minute that Luka steps back, you just see that guy immediately just recognize pure defeat before the shot's even gone up, before it's even close to leaving his hands. Like, I just knew it was over. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, there was a viral picture of Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, his is pretty funny too. The minute the switch happened, and he's like, "Ooh, whoops."
He's like, "Ooh, I'm not going to be able to switch back over there."
He knew. He knew it was over.
Yeah, I guess it's like, all right.
Yeah, so that brings up the question: was that a travel?
Not in the NBA.
It's the NBA, man. What is a travel in the NBA?
Like, it's just it's a funny one because there's obviously a ton in every game you could probably call, but one that's been slowed down, set to Kanye West, set to whatever else. Like, for it to be that close, you're like, oh, come on, let's get it.
That's a step back for you. That's why we try not to get kids to learn that shit early because it breaks their brain on how to do it once they get into the league. Good luck.
They're about to watch him do that for 8 more years.
I know.
I'll tell you right now what the difference between that and a travel is, right? All right. If Theo Pinson is the one doing that, that's travel. If it's Luka, that is not a travel.
And it's obviously still close because it's when does the ball collected, concretely and all that. It's tough, but
that's going by the black and white of the rule book when it's officiated in gray. Yeah, that's the way you always have to remember any rule in the NBA.
And also, do we know who's the crew for tomorrow's game?
Is it not just the same crew for the whole series?
Nope, no. They swap these bad boys out, but they limit it, so it kind of can be repeats.
Because we've already had Tony Brothers,
so
and
I figured there's going to only be so many.
One. And then this last one was Scott Foster, so the extender is no longer here, as they like to call him. Let me be some guy that I never heard of.
Winning by 1 last night. I really needed Kyrie to hit a couple free throws.
Or Luka make that and one, which that 3-point shot was beautiful. Just chucks it up in the air and just makes that.
All right, now let's see. NBA referee assignments. There's an official part of the website that's for this, but guess what? It sucks. Who would
Would
have
it not
thought
just-
NBA.com fucking sucks?
Would it not just say it like the ESPN matchup? I'm gonna see it.
Probably, but you would think, hey, the first thing in Google should be what's working, but of course it's not because it's the NBA.com, which fucking sucks.
You're right. I don't see it here either. Doesn't announce who the
Let me see.
Yeah, and
Ref-
the referee's Twitter account doesn't have it either, so I don't
Maybe
think
they
they've
haven't
announced
announced, yeah.
it officially.
you would,
Yeah,
if they haven't announced it yet, I'm worried.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
If I see
Yeah.
Tony Brothers on there, I'm
Adam Silver's out
gonna
there
sweat it out.
fucking. Oh my god, I just forgot the character's name. He's out there doing Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson style recruiting of refs for we need one more game.
Angel Hernandez comes out of nowhere. All right. So
Tim
yeah,
Donahue comes back.
Tim Donahue
Let him
comes
out of
back.
prison. Yeah, they let him out of prison. Like, listen.
Oh, he's been a
We're
free man for a bit.
Well, they're like, listen, we're already partnered with DraftKings.
Referee
It's
assignments
okay.
will be posted at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I see. All right. Well, either way, yeah. So there we go. Next time we talk, we should be
The day
previewing-
before game one. Yeah.
Is Porzingis going to be back for the finals?
We should be previewing those. Yes, he should. Well, how much he'll play? That is the question.
Man's made
It is
less.
funny that there was
No, I mean just because it's also he just hasn't played basketball in like a month either, so like they're probably not going to give him a full load.
and then it gross. No, don't do it. You're gonna
Well, yeah, to answer. Look. In light of Rolling Stone's article, we have decided to not promote Sean P. Diddy Combs any further on this here platform, even if it's at his, behest, whatever you may feel. We thought it would be a little more topical to find someone who has not yet been charged, at least. So.
It's just the fact that Patrick knew what you were going to do.
I
and
saw
he's
his
like, no,
eyes light
don't.
up.
I've been
It was
waiting
like
for a moment of integration.
Oh, yeah.
But,
So
either way.
It's like, no,
There-
don't.
before the Celtics won, there was the funny thing looking at the Mavs had potential, if they got past the Timberwolves, to have one of two storylines of either playing against Rick Carlisle in the finals or potentially KP in the finals. So I like both of those. And KP in the finals with Kyrie going against Boston, that's some good storylines too.
Yes, Kyrie takes number one for a lot of people, but for me, this is something my close friends can attribute to, especially on the Mavericks ones, because I've been saying this for many years. I've been waiting for it. I've been trying to set the stage for Luka versus Jason Tatum for best player in the NBA for some time now, and finally the stage is set. Now, I understand why there's a lot of people who think Tatum shouldn't have any sort of say in this, and maybe that's correct.
I think he's really good, but yeah, I don't know.
I want him to have a chance in a series, because here's the difference. What if he can lock up Luka? What if he does the job and then it doesn't quite mean as much that Luka's the better offensive player? Because I think that's unequivocal. That's done. That conversation's pretty much been done. But is Tatum good enough as an offensive player, which is better than like most of NBA history? And is he, is the defensive high, like he could be the best defensive player in basketball if he put his mind to it. Nothing about his physical makeup says that this guy couldn't absolutely fucking wreak havoc on a nightly basis defensively.
But
So
does
consistent. Well, and that's it. So they get a great opportunity, and you got to be on your P's and Q's if you end up getting that matchup. And if you end up getting a hot Timberwolves with a big man that can shoot and maybe has confidence by this point, another big man that can protect the rim from the two great rim attackers that you have with Brown and Tatum.
And yeah, if you want to talk team of destiny, team that came back from the 3-0.
Yeah, the team. Yeah, talk about destiny. So either matchup, Boston definitely still has their work cut out for them. But at this point, I do feel comfortable to say, here we go. The Rangers have started us off. The Mavericks probably go next. Then the Stars should follow accordingly. And of course, The Dallas Cowboys aren't gonna make it. Yeah. They're never gonna make it.
But
Look,
we
I'll
still
tell you
have
this,
FC Dallas.
If the Stars and Mavs
No,
both
fuck
make the
that.
finals, I'm putting a bet on the Cowboys at least making the Super Bowl because
You should. I would do that because it's the one time. Well, but that's always a shitty bet because everybody does it every year.
yeah,
That's
it's
the only
not gonna.
bitch about.
But I'm only gonna do it on the year where it's gonna make the most sense because nothing makes sense if the Rangers,
Yeah.
Stars, Mavs.
All go boom, boom, boom. If Dallas goes 4 for 4 like that on the big boys,
Well, I mean, 3
in a
for 3
calendar
would be
year?
a first. I'm pretty sure. 3
Yeah,
of any.
I mean, Boston's got to be the only city I've thought of in my lifetime.
They've got
that's
2.
Had a chance,
They have
right?
2, yeah, but I don't think they ever carried more than 2 simultaneously.
I think they one time had the New England Revolution win.
No, we're
I
not
think
counting
it's-
MLS, Caesar. We're not doing it. I'm vetoing
Listen,
MLS.
I wish I had a laughter button.
Is that-
What other? Well,
Is
the Boston
that-
Bruins haven't won shit
When was the last time the Bruins won the Cup?
during like the early 2000s.
Mid
Okay,
odds,
but
yeah.
you had the Patriots. The Red Sox came back around that time.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Patriots they went like almost what 10 years? No, yeah, almost 10 years from
Yeah.
Super Bowl to Super Bowl.
But then the Sox
So
did
2000
too.
they won in
basically, right?
2000. Well, no, because they won in 2008, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, Sox got
They
3 or
did
4.
2004, 2008, and so the only other team that would have won,
And they did
were the
again.
Boston
like,
Celtics. And then I don't think the Bruins would have won that during that time. So the only
Okay,
other major sport,
Celtics have 08.
MLS.
Patriots have 4, 14, 16, 18. Red Sox have 07, 13, 18.
And the Celtics only have 8.
And the Bruins have 2011. So, yeah, they carried 2 at a couple of different times, but they definitely never had 3 at the same time.
All right.
Well,
we already
there
have,
we go.
we already
If
have
the Rangers
we already
can-
have 2.
If the
We already have
Rangers,
2. The Renegades, baby.
we're only counting the 4 major sports.
We're counting Renegades.
And when you put them together, something about Captain Planet.
Something about Captain Planet. Oh man, I would hate to see what the Dallas version of Captain Planet would be. An insurrectionist.
Maybe. Listen, if the Stars and the Mavericks win, the city, the city's going to be just absolutely demolished. Downtown will never be the same again.
See, that's the thing is Dallas isn't really a riot city for
It can
much.
be.
No, it's just gonna be a bunch of people honking horns and revving vehicles downtown.
And when the Cowboys
You just-
win, their praise gonna be
And
in
shooting
Arlington.
guns in the air,
So
probably.
that would be
Yeah,
be
they
the
can do the
wild
parade.
one.
They get to do the parade around the fucking
That's the
parking
one
lot
cool
again.
thing is the Rangers could host us. The Cowboys will probably honestly, we talked about it before. Cowboys probably hosting like multiple parades. If they pull that shit off.
It's downtown
Stars-
Dallas. He's not doing it anywhere else.
Okay, but they all honestly, why not do all 3 if you're gonna do it, Jerry? You know what I mean? But anyway, we're not talking about Jerry right now. This isn't his moment. Don't give him shine.
There's probably some
Um,
kind of laws about how much alcohol you're allowed to feed your players in a 72-hour period. So you gotta split those up if you're gonna do multiple parades.
But either way, this feels like 100% opportunity for us to get it in downtown
Why not
Dallas. For us
just going to
not
New
to have the
Hampshire,
Rangers-
Tom Harkin?
Look, I know why the Rangers are up Arlington's ass. I get it. They paid for 2 stadiums in less than like 30 years. That's not normal.
And 3 stadiums total. So
Yeah, 3 stadiums total.
if you want to count
So,
the
like,
first one as a professional stadium, which I don't think many people would, but
well,
it was pretty much just a giant
But
heat
they-
dome. That's
Yeah.
really what it was. That had a baseball diamond in the middle of it.
so yeah.
The second
But
one was
it's-
beautiful, and the third one's a chicken slaughterhouse or something.
It's been
It's a food court.
beautiful. It's been a beautiful thing to watch, even though I don't particularly root for the Mavericks over anybody. It is nice to see. And if they were to be matched up against Boston, I would probably be a little bit more biased than usual.
I think the NBA would prefer that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Minnesota's not the sexiest thing, but Ant Edwards really helps your bottom line. I think they got a good final 3 year. The Pacers somehow making it would have been.
Yeah,
Like-
Pacers Wolves would have been maybe the lowest rated finals of all time.
Yeah.
What is the lowest rated finals?
gotta be
is
Spurs
it the Spurs
Nets.
Cavs?
Spurs Nets, I remember was I think Spurs Nets is still the record holder, but I think someone else got close once.
Was
Well,
it?
I think it was
Spurs
2
and Cavs
Spurs. I
in
think it
there,
was
too?
2 Spurs titles.
Spurs Cavs could have been down there, but it's LeBron's first. So I would have thought that would at least get
No,
some
yeah,
juice.
because in 07 starts to spike back up again. It was also a period
Spurs
of time
Pistons.
that so it wasn't just that the Spurs were winning; it was the Spurs at a time. No, I don't think it was
And
Pistons.
the East was just such garbage for a decade there that no one.
I think it would have been. Yeah, I guess it would have had to have been. Maybe it was 04 that also did really bad. No, that would have been Lakers.
Pistons.
That would have been Lakers Pistons. There's no way that did bad. I don't know. Either way, I do remember the Nets one being really bad.
Pistons. Who the Spurs
Well,
beat
the
for
2020
first title?
NBA Finals is.
That's right. The 2020 Finals was the one that set the record.
Who's that? Lakers who?
Lakers Heat.
Heat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Seed
That
Heat.
was why. That's why I knew we had just talked about this recently, and that's why the bubble titles. All right. Well, that's basketball for you, boys.
This is Past the Rock.